Greetings, YouTube, and before anyone asks, this word right here is the town that my parents grew up in Pennsylvania. It is a tiny little coal town built on 7 hills in the middle of nowhere with a population of about 3,000 people. It's not big, but they have the world's greatest hamburgers at a place called the Coney Island Restaurant. Today I'm going to review Kiss Me Like a Stranger, My Search for Love and Art by Gene Wilder. And yes, I thought that the title was a smidge pretentious as well. This is the memoir of Gene Wilder. Now, fans of Young Frankenstein or Blazing Saddle will of course know who Gene Wilder is. He's a comedic genius and what I consider to be a great gift to entertainment for the 20th century. Silver Streak, Stir Crazy, he's just a gem, and we are lucky to have him. This book covers from his earliest childhood up through his successful beating cancer and sometime in the 21st century. I don't know exactly what year. What's fascinating is that it very much delves into the psychological structure of Gene Wilder. This isn't just the high points of his life. This isn't just his anecdotal tales of his childhood or his development as an actor or a writer or a director. This is Gene Wilder, and there are moments in this book where he is harshly raw. And I found it a pleasant surprise to feel that, to see that. Because in some ways, if those that are familiar with the videos that I do when I talk about myself, I can be very open and very right there, you know, and I appreciate when other people can open themselves up like that. It's not common, in some ways it was refreshing. Also, what's interesting in this book, before I get into more details, is that when he's writing the prose, you know, the bulk of the book, you know, 99% of the book, it's very well written. He's a good writer. But it doesn't sound like Gene Wilder's voice. I'm not hearing Gene Wilder's voice in my head when I'm reading it. It's entertaining, and it's easy to read. There's no problems with it. But when he's writing the dialogue, and there are scenes where he writes actual dialogue between himself and a therapist or between himself and another person, because, you know, he's done screenwriting, he knows exactly how to write dialogue. When he writes the dialogue, that is when Gene Wilder, the actor, the person that I've come to know and love, comes shining through. And that the way that it rung like a bell almost. It was very pleasant. It was a nice break. It made the other sections seem more real in some ways, because I could suddenly see Gene Wilder, the actor, and then we get back to Gene Wilder, the person. The book opens when Gene essentially is a child. I think something in the 7 or 9 range. I can't remember exactly how old. And his mother has a heart attack. This is a major life-changing event in anyone's life, whether you're the person having the heart attack or the family member supporting someone who's had a heart attack. But remember, this is a long time ago. Gene was born in like 35, so this is, you know, a time period where cardiovascular science was not high. And the doctor, the cardio specialist, who was morbidly obese and would later die of heart disease, not a ringing endorsement in my book for his medical expertise, tells Gene Wilder, "Don't ever argue with your mother. It could kill her." Now that right there should have gotten this man stripped of any medical credentials and him tossed into the street, because he was useless. But that statement crippled Gene Wilder for like the next 25 years of his life. And that statement forged who Gene Wilder would become. And I'm not going to spoil all the details because I want you to read this book. It was very well written. But that simple mental construct, that meme that doctor planted in his skull, shaped who he was. And eventually, as a full-blown adult, he was able to move beyond it. But at which point, when you're 30 years old and you finally realize that you've had this problem all your life and you're just getting over it, it's too late to change the fact that it shaped who you are. I'm in the process of doing that now at 47, thanks to my therapist, and it's not going to suddenly change who I am just because I realized that yes, these problems were holding me back, and now I can move forward. You are who you are. The die has been cast. But this book covers all of his film history all the way up through the present. I don't think he's done anything since this was written. And you get to listen to him talk about working with Mel Brooks and Richard Pryor and all of his films that he did and his stage work, and all the people he worked with and how it shaped who he was, him being a member of the Studio Actors Guild. And he was a fascinating man on so many levels because he was so deeply steeped in all facets of acting. This was a man that very much is, I think, almost a member of the classic era of Hollywood, even though it was a later date, even though he was born in 35. I think he is a product of that era, and I loved this book. It was a lot of fun to read. It was heartbreaking at times because you're watching this man stumble over problems, and you as the reader can see what the reason is that he had this problem that he couldn't, and he was dealing with it the best he could. And frankly, I think he did a pretty good, darn good job. And I recommend this if you're a fan of film or stage or film writing, and if you are, of course, a fan of Gene Wilder. So go out there and get a copy of this book, man. It's worth your time. I enjoyed it, and I think you will too.